Hey guys, welcome back to Collective Perspective. It's episode 81 today. I've been wanting to do this topic for quite a while. We're going to be talking about how movies and shows affect the value of games. Everything from Castlevania, the animated series, to something like Barbie, a movie that was incredibly popular a few years ago. I did a lot of research today. I made this beautiful Excel sheet and I have 23 movies and shows, I believe, that we're going to talk about today. Craig, are you excited?
I am excited. I helped you compile screenshots for this, but to be completely honest, I was not paying attention at all as long as I got the information there. So even though I've seen some of these prices, they're still going to come as a shock to me because I wasn't really looking.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to fully digest it myself. This is going to be a good time. Let's kick it off. We're going to start with Castlevania. This is a show that I love, and I've talked about this before, but like I had never even played Castlevania until this show came out. I watched this first few seasons, and I was like, oh wow, like I love this. And I went and started freaking binging Castlevania games. I'm still binging Castlevania games. And I imagine I'm not the only person who had that experience, especially considering it's been like a decade since we had a new Castlevania game. Um,
Yeah, isn't it crazy we haven't gotten one with the hype of the TV show?
it's very
Insane that
strange.
they didn't cash in on that.
Konami's a strange company.
Yes, they are.
They like their slot machines and pachinko. So we're gonna start with Castlevania. So the way this works, before we dive in, I guess I have got the game title and the console, and then I have written down the release date of the movie or show. In this case, we're talking about the entire show of Castlevania, not just season one, but I will specify per show. And then we're going to do the year before the show released, what was the value of the game, and then the release window. So, what I've noticed while doing these notes is like this show started in June of 2017. When you look at the graph, we have the graph right here. You can't really see the months, but like if you zoomed into June of 2017, it's not going to be as high as like a couple months later in most cases. So usually the movie comes out or the show comes out, and then a couple months later, that's where the real peak is. And then so that's why I wrote release window for this column G here. And then we've got the percent change. The first one here is going to be between the release window and the 1 year before. And then this second percent change is going to be 1 year after release compared to 1 year before release. So, how did I choose the
Before
games? Basically, I went with my gut feeling of like what is collectible, right? So, in as it pertains to the show or movie, Castlevania, this is the first time Castlevania's ever had a show, and obviously the first Castlevania has to be on the list for that reason. I think there's a lot of elements from Symphony of the Night in the show, and like also it's one of the most popular Castlevania games. Probably is the most popular Castlevania game.
definitely.
And if we lived in Japan, Rondo of Blood would be on this list, but we are a country without a Rondo. So, that's how I chose the games. That's kind of how I did it for all 23 of them. Craig, did you know that a year before, in 2016, you could buy a complete in box Castlevania for a whopping $100?
Incredible.
So, the show got a Metascore of 71. Pretty solid, pretty above average, I guess. When the show came out, it dropped 14%. It was all of a sudden it was $86. Oh yeah, one more thing. This is all complete in box. This entire spreadsheet. We're talking CIB. And a year after, the game was $94. So what am I going to take away from this? These first few movies and shows are pre 2020, and I think that's vital because we have seen the hobby explode since COVID. Even really since 2019 is really when there was like a major explosion, and I don't think there's a lot of correlation on these first few. I don't think a lot of people were watching this random Netflix anime and getting on eBay and buying $100 copy of Castlevania. Clearly not, because it dropped 14%.
8 years later, that's a much more common occurrence.
Exactly. That being said, we're still going to go through a few of these and see. Symphony of the Night actually increased. But as you can see on this graph, this game kind of hasn't stopped going up. 2021, there was obviously a huge spike, but this game, even as we speak, is still increasing in value. It's a game that everyone wants to play. It's on a console that is a lot more easily accessible by the common collector, I suppose. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, you're a lot more likely to come across a dinky PS1, at a garage sale or a Goodwill, even compared to an NES.
Right, and PS2 and PS3 also play it. Like, I think a lot of people, I don't know.
Yeah, it's the Castlevania game, right? Even more so
Exactly.
than the original.
So, quick mention there, and I think we can move on to the next one here. We've got Avengers Endgame. This one had to make the list. It's one of the biggest movies that has come out in a very long time. And, we had, 20 years of movies building up to it. And it was a huge deal. Not 20 years, but close to it. No, I think it was like 11 years. Never mind.
So
Okay.
if you round to the nearest 20, you're fine.
I honestly, there's not a lot of iconic Avengers games. Like, what would you have put in this list?
I mean, maybe like Marvel Superheroes, the Capcom fighting games, but
Oh yeah,
other than that, I mean, there isn't really any just like, and then I guess like there's the more recent Avengers game that no one cared about, so that's not going to have any collectability to it anyway.
right.
It's probably the closest thing you're going to get.
So this one actually came out on Genesis and Super Nintendo. I think this one has always been the more pricey one, if I'm correct on that. I think NES is like, if you had 3 consoles, I think NES, versus SNES or Genesis, I think this is the one that's going to be more collectible 9 times out of 10, and that's why I went with this one. But not a lot to see.
If it came out on all those consoles, the NES one's going to be the low print one too. So
yeah, right. Good point. 78 on Metacritic, and when I do the Metascore on here, it's only the critic reviews. I didn't include the user reviews. So a year before, you can get this game CIB for $44, which seems insane to me. You could never get anything worth owning on the NES for complete a box for $44.
not at this point.
So you look at this graph here, we're looking at the 2018, and everything is just so low until you get to like 2020, 2021. So there's a 65% increase in 2019 around the launch of this movie. I'm going to call it coincidence. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think anyone really cared. I think this is totally coincidental.
I think there could have been some people intrigued, and maybe, I'm sure there's going to always be some overlap. Like, I'm the type of guy that's like, oh, I just love this movie, I need to go, like, buy the game. There's probably a good amount of people that are doing that. But a year later, it's still going up. I do think that, a year later, we're talking April 2020, it's locked down, people start spending money. I think this one is mostly coincidence. Moving on. We're jumping all the way to 2021. There was a pandemic. We didn't have a lot of movies coming out.
But we had Venom, Let There Be Carnage, baby. I don't care what anyone says, that movie is fun as hell. I loved it. I had a great time.
Shout out to Eminem.
Shout out.
So we've got Maximum Carnage here. I think this is like the Venom game. Probably, honorable mentions could have been to like Ultimate Spider-Man in the GameCube era. But Maximum Carnage dropped on SNES and Genesis, and this movie had a 49 on Metacritic. Sorry to say it. Believe it or
Critics
not,
aren't always right.
believe it or not, you could get this for $33 in the year of 2020. So October 2020 on the Genesis, it was $33. And on the Super Nintendo, it was a whopping $80. Nowadays, it's through the roof, as you can see on this picture here. But when this movie came out, the freaking game jumps up 81%. Again, it's COVID time. I'm really thinking it's coincidental. 140% on Super Nintendo. Absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely not related to Venom Let There Be Carnage. In my opinion.
I mean, maybe 2020 and on is when, when the hobby really had its big boom. So, like, anytime after that point, I could see the influence being there.
Yeah. 1 year after, the game on Genesis dropped down to $46.50, but still a big 40% increase over the original price a year prior. And then we're up We're up to $186, over 130% on the Super Nintendo. That's that cardboard Nintendo tax right there.
Cardboard Nintendo tax.
Let's take a gander at Spider-Man No Way Home. Now this one, I feel pretty good about this one. This one and onward, I feel like maybe we start to see some correlations here.
Mm-hmm.
So Spider-Man on Atari 2600 is like the first, for all intents and purposes, it's like the first Spider-Man game. And this movie was a big deal. It had all three of the Spider-Man actors in it, and despite getting a 71 on Metacritic, like this one knocked people's socks off, and it was a lot of fun. It was like, one of the earlier movies to come out after COVID's like lockdown ended, and so everybody was going to the theaters again to see this. It was kind of a big deal.
Yes, definitely.
This game's always been pretty cheap on Atari 2600. So a year before the movie comes out, it is December of 2020, and this game will run you $30 CIB. I believe, I'm not a sealed guy, but I believe this is one of those games that you can just get cases and cases of sealed. I think it's a new old stock game. But I'm not sure. Movie comes out, this game jumps up 63%. It's all of a sudden it's $50. And even a year later, it is still holding some value at $40, so 33% above what it was originally.
It would be a cool one to own, for sure.
I agree.
One of the few 2600 games I think I'd proudly display.
Next episode, Atari 2600 games.
Hell yeah.
On the Game Boy, we have The Amazing Spider-Man. This one is the earliest, like, non-computer one that I felt needed to be included, right? Because I don't personally trust price charting for PC games, especially not, like, the MS-DOS games, the freaking, like, floppy disk games. I really don't trust price charting for any of that. So there's not going to be any of that on the spreadsheet, but the first, like, Nintendo Spider-Man game is The Amazing Spider-Man from 1990 on the Game Boy.
Ooh, LJN.
Yep, published by LJN, but developed by Rare.
Oh.
A year before the movie comes out, it's a whopping $20 CIB. Even, like, in 2020, that's insane.
Man.
Why didn't I buy that? Movie comes out, it's 178%. You can see the graph there. This thing skyrockets. It's $55, and a year later it's still holding $57. And you can see today it's $94. So
it's only gone up.
Is this due to the movie, Craig?
Initially maybe, but the continuous rise I think is just one of those things where supply versus demand kind of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, most original Game Boy games are just hard to find complete, right? So.
Right. We got Spider-Man 2000. I chose the PlayStation one here because I figured it was the one that most people would want to collect.
But
I don't know.
The Dreamcast version's better.
I don't know if there's any truth behind that. I think the N64 one is cool. Obviously, it's cardboard. Regardless, it's not an expensive game. It never has been, except for Dreamcast. Craig told me it's like $100.
It's a pricey one.
So a year before the movie, it's $22. Movie comes out, jumps up 50%, and then a year after the movie, it's holding that same value at 50% above what it was originally going for. A lot of COVID had to do with this for sure. And I guess if I need to state this, when I say a lot of COVID happened here, I mean like people were getting free money left and right from the government. People were chilling at home, getting paid to do nothing. And that's kind of why we had this insane resurgence or surgence of like money being spent on the hobby and all kinds of collectible hobbies. But I think everyone knows that.
Wish that could have been me. I was still working. I never got a break. Also, just to correct myself, Spider-Man on Dreamcast used to be $90 a year ago. Now it's 66, so it's gone down.
That's a lot.
Just so we're not spreading misinfo. Yeah, I don't know what the hell that kind of peak was for. Anyway.
Last one here. So Spider-Man 2000, kind of like the first Spider-Man that was three-dimensional, and it was also the first one in like a few years, I think. That might not be true, but
three-dimensional. Yeah. You got Spider-Man, you got Spider-Man 2, you got Spider-Man 3, you got Ultimate Spider-Man. There's plenty of three-dimensional Spider-Mans.
Oh, no, I'm not talking about Web of Shadows. I'm talking about Spider-Man 2000 still.
Oh, I thought we moved on.
And then Spider-Man Web of Shadows, this is kind of like when Activision starts to release these really good like tie-ins that aren't related to any movie. So Activision was putting out Spider-Man games for a long time, but then like on the PS3 and 360, I don't know what happened. They were like, hey, we got this license. We need to start putting out some quality Spider-Man games. So you got your Web of Shadows, your Edge of Time, your Shattered Dimensions, like that trilogy of games, pretty solid. Yeah. And so these have been going up in price for a while, but a year before Spider-Man No Way Home comes out, this game's already $55, which is a lot for a PS3 game. 2021 comes around, this game freaking skyrockets in the release window, and I do think that Spider-Man No Way Home has everything to do with this. This game skyrockets just at the beginning of 2022 to $130.
Insane.
And even today, this game's still $110. So
nutty.
This definitely was around the time that people were like, holy crap, I need to play this. And it's not about collecting. It has nothing to do with people wanting to collect Spider-Man Web of Shadows because of how it's like, what am I trying to say, Craig? This movie did not affect collectors, or it did not affect this game's collectability. It affected this game's want to be played. Everyone wanted to play Spider-Man after they watched No Way Home. And I'm sure I didn't check Edge of Time, I didn't check Shattered Dimensions, but I guarantee it's going to have the same spike in the same month.
Yeah, they all, the 360 games also had spikes as well. That whole generation of Spider-Man games saw a big bump from this time period.
And they're not listed on any storefronts, so they're not going to be coming down in price unless Activision somehow makes that happen again.
Good old licensing issues.
Let's move on to the Batman real quick.
The Batman.
I feel like I should have added more games here. Like, I know The Adventures of Batman and Robin is a beloved game. I don't know that, like, a movie is going to make me want to go and just collect some random Batman game from the 90s. So I went with the original Batman.
Yeah. People love this game. Sunsoft.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
Movie comes out 2022. This is the one with the vampire. What's his name?
The vampire?
The guy from Twilight?
Oh, Robert Pattinson.
This is that movie. I don't know how it got a 72. I thought this was a fantastic movie.
Oh, it's so good.
So a year before the movie comes out, you can get a CIB copy of Sunsoft's Batman, the video game, $60. CIB all day.
Not too shabby.
That is March of 2021. That is peak COVID time for like collectibles. Maybe not peak, but we're getting there. This movie comes out, and this game bounces up to $92. 52% increase. A year later, it's still holding $97. Today, it's $80. Hard to say. Hard to say if the movie influenced this one.
Yeah, I don't know. This one could be more coincidental. Or maybe when the Batman 2 comes out, it'll spike up to $100. Again, who knows?
Yeah, we could absolutely do this every couple of years.
Follow up, yeah.
Because things are always getting sequels these days.
Oh, yeah.
Let's move on to Jurassic World Dominion. I think this is an interesting one. And I added this movie specifically because I went to Wikipedia and I was like, what are like the movies of the 2020s? And this was the 10th, despite getting 38 on Metacritic, this was the 10th most successful movie in terms of box office sales of this decade so far. Grossed $1 billion.
Dinosaurs are cool, man.
Dinosaurs are very cool. I think they're going to remain cool. And there's a new Jurassic World coming out soon. I think
with
this year.
Good old ScarJo.
Yeah. So let's take a... So, yeah, there's a lot of Jurassic Park games. These are the first two that... No, I don't think there's anything to add on to that. I think these are the first two. I don't even know if they're the same game or if they just have the same general box art. I don't know. You know anything about Jurassic Park?
Zero clue.
Doesn't matter. We don't play our games here. We're talking about money and investing, and that's all I got for that joke. So real quick, a year before Jurassic Park, the Jurassic World Dominion comes out. $57, you get yourself a CIB on Super Nintendo. $39, my bad, and then $18 for Genesis. These jump up. Super Nintendo jumps up 46%. It's a massive jump. It's from June of 2021 to June of 2022, roughly. So June, like summer of 2021, is kind of like the COVID insanity. I'm pretty sure that's when we had the $1.5 million Mario. We had the $800,000 Mario. Like there was all kinds of stuff happening summer 2021.
When all the duo packs started showing up, it was crazy times.
Yeah, those are the three key events right there.
The three things that define collecting going forward.
He's talking about the Sega GameCube duo packs that sold for $6,000 each, I believe.
Disgusting.
So one jumps up 46%, and that's the cardboard one. One drops down 3%, and I'm not seeing any correlation here because the Genesis one pretty much stays flat a year later, and the I don't know, $39 to $47, that's 20% increase. It's also not that much for a cardboard box game. You've got to include condition, and you've got to include completeness. I imagine, like, you can see how wavy this line is. That being said, it is now $50. I don't know. It's tough on cardboard because of the condition thing, and because I just feel like cardboard is disappearing by the day, or it's degrading by the day. Things are getting shipped in bubble mailers by the day, and so even though this hobby has become a collectible hobby, things are still being mistreated, and I mean, it's just quantity is still going down, is long story short.
Yeah, these boxes are not made to last. They were meant to be thrown away. So
absolutely. You want to talk about Thor: Love and Thunder, Craig?
Do I? All right, so Thor: Love and Thunder, best Thor movie. I think everybody could agree for the most part. Released on July 8th of 2022. The Metacritic score 57. A little low in my opinion. We could bump that up a bit.
I like it.
Love and Thunder is pretty dang good. So on the DS, 1 year before, $13.95. On the PlayStation 3, $26.45. For the release peak period of the DS, we had $17.63. And for the PS3, we had $19.45. So DS went up, and PlayStation 3 actually went down. And 1 year later, the DS version plummeted to $10.71, and the PS3 version went up 55 cents from the release peak. So if you're going to invest in the PS3 version. DS is trash. Everybody knows the PlayStation 3 is more collectible than the DS. No, but you left a note here that the DS version is a way forward game, and I've actually heard good things about the DS version. So kind of neat. Seems like a cool, cheap game. And I don't know about the console version because no one talked about the console version of this one. But shout out to Thor: Love and Thunder.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Captain America
movie
later, but Sega published a bunch of these early MCU movie games.
Yeah, they did Iron Man as well.
And I don't know if Iron Man's any good, but Captain America is supposedly good, and these are the only Thor games. Like, I wanted to avoid movie tie-in games for this list, but like these are the only ones, and at least one of them is way forward. That pretty much
Yeah.
makes it playable.
Yeah, I feel like Thor was not, a very beloved superhero until the MCU. Like, people knew about him, but he wasn't really anybody's favorite,
I agree. Yeah.
So, all right. Next up, we have Avatar, The Way of the Water movie released on December 16th, 2022. I still haven't seen it because I refuse to sit through 3 hours of CGI slop, but that is just me. The Avatar game on PlayStation 3, 1 year before, 1190. The release peak, 2215, so up 86.13%. And a year later, dropped down to 1521, so still a 27% increase, which is pretty interesting. You left the note, highest grossing film of the 2020s, $2.3 billion worldwide. And the Metacritic score for that movie was 67, so probably didn't deserve $2.3 billion.
I have a lot to say. I had a great time watching this movie. I loved it. But aside from the movie, I think this data is incredibly interesting because I went into this thinking there's no way this game was affected at all by a sequel that came out like a decade and a half later.
And somehow...
Yeah, and somehow people were like, man, I really need James Cameron's Avatar the game on PS3. And the freaking price
You've
went
never
up
had
86...
that thought?
What?
You've never had that thought?
I can't believe that it went up, and yeah, I think this is a fascinating one. That's not a coincidence.
No, definitely not. And it's a really funny one too.
It's also on 360 and a PSP. I didn't check those, but I'm sure the PSP one has not stopped going down since it released, if I had to guess.
The game stores are paying you to take it home. All right, next up, we got The Last of Us. Second season just recently ended that. Season 1 released January 15th, 2023. Wow, is that long ago already? The Metacritic score, pretty high, just like the game's Metacritic score, of an 84. 1 year before, it was $9.12. The release peak, $19.99, 119.19% increase. And 1 year after, dropped down to $10.83, 18.75% increase. So still up, but not much. And this game's probably going to be very cheap forever because it's sold a jillion copies.
I think you could do this entire video again on sealed games, and that would be like a totally different conversation.
Oh, 100%.
I think real collectors, coming from a collector, a real collector doesn't want a CIB copy of The Last of Us. They're going to want... No, I mean, that's not true. Obviously, we love CIB, and we think it's the truth. But I think if you're the type of person making these connections between, like, okay, this movie's going to come out, what should I, like, quote-unquote, invest in now? It's going to be a sealed copy of The Last of Us. You're going to be looking at print runs and everything. This game sold, I don't know, trillions of copies in North America. And
the best-selling game of all time.
It's always going to be cheap. Craig said it already. That being said, it is very fascinating that in 2023 it went up 120% because no one wants to play this version. Everyone, at the very least, you're going to play the PS4 version, and I'm going to assume the PS5 version was already out at this point.
I don't know, actually. It might have been. That or the PC port or something. I thought they did something similar timeline to this, but yeah, I don't know who's playing Last of Us on PS3 in 2025. God help you if you are.
Yeah, the PS3 version apparently runs at like 20 frames a second.
Oof. That makes sense, though, for how good the game looks. They had to make sacrifices.
Yeah.
Neil Druckmann. Next up, I'll keep rolling with this. We got The Flash, the movie that was very mixed from people. I used to see a clip of him putting a baby in a microwave I don't have the context for that. I have not seen the movie. That was all I needed to know. Released June 16th, 2023. Metacritic score 55. The Game Boy game, the Flash, which is super weird. Just looking at the cover, I'm like, it has no connection to anything that I'm aware of. It's just a very interesting, weird, original Game Boy exclusive. 1 year before, $72.96. Release peak, $75, up a whopping 2.8%. And 1 year later, up 40.01% at 102.15. The Game Boy Advance game Justice League Heroes, The Flash. 1 year before, 34.37. Release peak, $54.99. Up 59.99%. And 1 year after, $31.66. Down 7.88% total. Also a way forward game.
I don't know if there's any connection here. I mean, maybe to the GBA one. But this random Game Boy Flash, it just seems... I mean, the movie was, like, not loved, like you said. It got a 55 on Metacritic, and I just don't think DC in general...
Ezra Miller went crazy. It had a weird roundabout the whole time.
I think DC in general is just struggling in the movie department. I think we all know this. If it's not Batman, good luck to you. We're going to be talking about Aquaman here soon.
Oh, hell yeah.
Probably not a lot of correlation between these two. But that being said, 40% up regardless on the Flash.
40% up.
Worth noting, though, the volume on price charting for the GB one is 2 per year. So very condition sensitive.
Yeah, very uncommon to rare game.
Yeah.
I had no idea it even existed until about 30 minutes ago, so if that tells you anything. All right. Want to go ahead and switch back to you?
I'm so excited to talk about the Barbie game. I mean, the Barbie movie.
I knew you would be.
And look at the freaking numbers. Look at these yellow columns. Up all across the board. That's not a coincidence. That's not freaking inflation. No, I'm sure the 6.33% could be inflation.
To the moon.
Barbie on NES, though, I think that if you were going to go collect anything Barbie after this movie came out, it would probably be the NES game. There's a ton of Barbie titles. There's a ton on PC. There's just been so many over the years. But I probably could have skipped the Game Boy and Genesis releases and just talked about the NES one here. But let's go through it real quick. July of 2022, you could get this game on NES, CIB, $34. On Game Boy, you could get Barbie Game Girl, an iconic name. I freaking love it. $114 CIB. Worth noting, that one also has 2 sales per year, so minimal sales data. Probably not going to have any correlation here. And then the Genesis one, I don't know if that is a cardboard game or a clamshell. Doesn't matter. It's $13.59, and I'll let you guys look at the numbers. I'm just going to talk about the NES one. This game peaked when the movie came out at around $45. The game didn't peak, but around the release window, it peaked at $45. You can see on the graph, it is still increasing. And then a year after release, $52. So, still going up. Total percentage of 53%. Did you see this movie?
Yeah, it's excellent.
I thought it was a great time. I had a lot of laughs.
It was way funnier than it had any right to be.
It was very funny. I mean, I think that's a good one to own. I think I would like to have Barbie on the NES, honestly. Nobody clip that, please. Metacritic 80 for the Barbie movie.
Not too bad.
Everyone's favorite show from 2023. We got Twisted Metal here.
I've actually heard very good things about the show.
You haven't seen it?
No, I haven't, but I've actually heard it's pretty good.
I haven't seen it either. Yeah, I'm definitely not going to go through the random sequels. If anything was going to go up, I would assume it's Twisted Metal 1. This game was a black box game first. I think it has a rare black jewel case release, and then there's a common greatest hits jewel case as
Trash.
well. So, Metacritic, the show, season 1 at least, had 55. Not great. a year before it comes out, you can get this long box for $77. The show comes out, all of a sudden it goes up a whopping 50% to $117. And then a year after the show comes out, it's back down to $70. Seeing any correlation here?
I think everyone said the show sucks, and then they sold their copies and took a loss. No, it's definitely a correlation because of that big bump, and then the drop to crazy that it dropped to even lower than it started. But
crazy indeed. I mean, this could just be some price charting stuff, but I don't know. Like, what they have a listing for each one on price charting. You've got the black. All three of the variants I just listed have their own separate listing. I imagine the data is getting mixed up from time to time with all three of those listings, but who knows? That's enough Twisted Metal. Let's talk about an animated film, TMNT Mutant Mayhem. I think I chose the three most interesting and collectible TMNT games, and then I went with a GameCube title just because I wanted something more modern and something that was different. I wrote a comment here. This is the first TMNT game in 9 years, and it was also the first one to be in 3 dimensions.
Interesting.
So I didn't go in release order here, but Ninja Turtles in Time. Everybody loves this freaking game. Turtles surfing on a surfboard. What's not to love? Movie, by the way, got a 74 on Metacritic. And
should be higher.
This is the only piece of TMNT media that Craig has ever watched.
And I loved it. It was so good.
I enjoyed it. This game always been expensive. It was basically $300 before the movie came out, and it was about $305 after the movie comes out. A year later, it's dropped immensely. So I was looking at this graph, and I was shocked. This thing this game CIB is the lowest it's been since January of 2020. I think it was
crazy.
Thank
you to the Cowabunga collection for that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that should not affect CIB prices if we're being real. If that's,
I wouldn't think it would.
Whatever happened, this game is down 22% after a year after the movie released, and even more so now. Hyperstone Heist is, I would say it would be as beloved, but it's on the Genesis, and people don't care about Genesis for some reason. So, $233, very expensive Genesis game. Movie comes out and it just happens to drop 35%, and then a year after the movie it drops, it goes up a little bit. So $160 was the final price, and that's pretty much what you can get it for now. I think Genesis is probably graph down emoji, probably for eternity. I think Genesis is only going down from here.
Yeah, unless you're a Crusader of Senti, you're pretty much you're on the cutting board.
Yeah. TMNT 1 on the NES, obviously a pretty iconic game. $75 before the movie comes out, $110 during the release window, dropped all the way down to $60. I couldn't tell you what happened there.
Yeah, it's very strange. I mean, maybe same thing. It's on the Cowabunga collection, but be shocked if there's actual correlation there.
Yeah, and then now it's currently $83. I don't know. I think that I don't think any of these old games, like, I wouldn't expect them to increase in price from an animated movie that, did it even come to theaters?
Yeah,
okay.
It just didn't do that well, but
yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't expect these old games. I might expect something on the GameCube to go up if somebody watched this movie and was like, hey, I'm gonna go check out this GameCube game that's only $30. But no, that one also dropped down 10%.
Damn.
I'm definitely gonna let you talk about Godzilla -1 though.
Yeah, I was gonna say I gotta take this one. This is all me, baby. So Godzilla -1, the greatest film to come out in the last, I'd say probably 27 years. Only behind my favorite movie of all time, Scream. Godzilla -1 is my second favorite movie of all time. Released on November 3rd, 2023. Metacritic score of 81. It should be a Metacritic score of 100. It is a perfect film. But we got a couple of great Godzilla games here, and I say great with an asterisk because one of them really sucks, one of them's average, and one of them's pretty good. So we got Godzilla 2014 on PlayStation 4, a famously expensive, and I wouldn't say rare, but definitely not a heavily printed PS4 game. Its spike came originally from the delisting on digital storefronts. So when this game, a year before the Godzilla Minus One, it was sitting at a chill 195.33. The release peak, it jumped up to 285.50, and 1 year after, went down to 221.90. So overall, a 13.6% increase. And something to note is whenever a Godzilla movie comes out, pretty much ever since King of the Monsters, which was in 2019, I believe. Yeah, 2019. This game has always had spikes whenever there's been a new Godzilla movie released, and since then, I think there's been 3 more Godzilla movies. So whenever you look at this chart and you see a big bump, it's because a Godzilla movie came out. Because we get Godzilla movies every couple of years.
I could have
it's a win for me.
I could have sworn VGP got a reprint of this game. Did that not happen?
No, not for this one.
Yeah, that's a lot of freaking money for a PS4 game. I think this is absolutely correlated to the movie, though. Huge
No,
jump.
definitely. Like I said, every time a Godzilla movie comes out, there's a bump on this one. So, and it'll definitely never get reprinted. Toho is a bitch with their licensing. Working with them is famously difficult, and that's why you don't see a lot of Godzilla stuff get re-released. Even some Godzilla movies on DVD are worth a ton of money because they only got like 1 or 2 printings. It's very strange and very interesting. Next up, we got Godzilla on NES. The first Godzilla game that we got stateside here. 1 year before, CIB price $135.24. During the release peak of the movie, it dropped down 26.06% to $100. And 1 year after that, dropped to 78.63 for a total loss of 41.86%. That's kind of crazy, but it's also just not really a very beloved game, honestly, too. And, NES isn't exactly the hotness to collect, within recent years. So it kind of makes sense to me.
I think that box art is pretty sick.
It is pretty sick.
And I would absolutely...
even sicker, though.
I would absolutely spend $100+ on the NES version before I spent $100+ on the PS4 game.
Totally valid. But the box art on Godzilla 2 is even cooler, in my opinion. So this has always been a very expensive NES game. Late life NES game. Really bad game. But it's cool because it's Godzilla. 1 year before, CIB price $350.50. Release peak down 5.15% to $332.45, and 1 year after, $341.46. So down 2.58%. But this game sells pretty infrequently, only about 1 sale per month. So,
which of these games do you own?
Only the PS4 one. I really want to get the NES games, but I have not been able to find. Usually, when they go for sale, and at least when I've looked, they're not always in the best condition. And if I'm going to spend a lot of money, I want my game to also look good. So, unfortunately.
Speaking of which, live on the air, did you get your package yet?
I haven't checked the mail. I should probably do that. But it's thunderstorming outside, so I might have to wait. Because you sent me cardboard. No, I don't want it to get damaged. You remember that episode of SpongeBob when it zooms in on their lips and they're like, actors.
Absolutely.
Sorry. Moving on.
You can keep going.
Okay, Aquaman. Aquaman Battle for Atlantis is the game we're talking about, connected to the movie, Aquaman The Lost Kingdom. This movie was very strange because it had no advertising. It felt like it just came and went like a wet fart. No one paid attention, no one knew what was happening. And it didn't review well either. Metacritic score of 42. We're going to be talking about the GameCube version because if this game releases generation, the GameCube version is going to be the version that most people want, unless you're Teen Titans for some reason. But we're not talking about Teen Titans. We're talking about our DC property, Aquaman. 1 year before, 1997. Release peak, $24.99, up a whopping 25.14%. And 1 year later, down to $20.67, still up 3.51%. It's very funny to me that this game is so cheap, because when I was going for the GameCube set, this was one of the hardest games for me to find. I could not find this game for the life of me. But as I've talked about on other episodes of this show, the availability of GameCube games and what was out there, flooding the market was very different when I was doing it compared to now. So, like I think I said before on the show, famously, Scalar was like impossible for me to find. For like a year, I couldn't find a copy of the manual even on eBay, and now it's like you could find 30 copies for sale. So, the market has shifted.
I would argue that not one person on the entire planet watched this movie and then said, I need to go buy Aquaman on GameCube. I'm going to say there's no correlation here.
Definitely not. Also a famously terrible video game, so that doesn't help.
I don't think any children's game should be rated T, first of all. That was their first mistake. That's just not
what the hell happens in Aquaman that justifies being rated T?
Yeah, this is apparently like one of the worst GameCube games ever made.
It's awful. It's so bad.
This one was only on GameCube and Xbox. They didn't even make it on PS2.
Yeah, they're like, we won't even sell anymore. Don't even bother.
I will say I enjoyed the movie. I think I enjoyed all the movies on this list because I'm easy to please.
Hey, I always say that I'd rather a movie be entertaining than good. I don't care if it's good, bad. I just want to have a good time.
Yeah.
Me and my wife binge watched all the Final Destinations within the last week, so if that tells you anything about my movie taste.
Oh, dang.
We had to be ready for the new one.
Yeah.
Alright, next up, going to be talking about Deadpool and Deadpool and Wolverine, as well as X-Men Origins Wolverine. There's no screenshots for X-Men Origins Wolverine, though.
Oh, screw it. They don't need them.
They were forgotten. It's too late. We are... however long into this, 45 minutes. We're not doing any more screenshots. Oh my gosh. We're fine. So Deadpool on 360. Well, the movie Deadpool and Wolverine released 7/6/24. Metacritic score 56. Surprisingly low for how beloved this movie is. I would have just assumed it was higher. People love this movie, including me. I thought it was great.
Including me.
So we got Deadpool on the 360, the PS3, the remastered version on Xbox One and PS4. We'll also mention X-Men Origins Wolverine on the 360 and PlayStation 3. Going over Deadpool first on 360 and PlayStation 3. $13.02 and $16 respectively. Then $50 and $54.89. Going up 284.02% and 243.06%. Then 1 year later, they dropped to $27.52 and $37.48. Still up 111.37% and 134.25%. Only been 11 months, not a full year, is what you said. Crazy how much this game exploded. Because we'll talk about Xbox One and PlayStation 4 versions as well in a second. But I would just like to point out that I bought the PS4 copy of Remastered when the original Deadpool movie came out. And it was dirt cheap back then. So it's funny how these correlations have started to kind of make a difference more as time's gone on compared to way back when.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
I think
because I was the target audience we're talking about right now. I saw Deadpool. I was like, that was fun. And then I found out there was a game and I went and bought it.
I think that this game, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like this spike also was happening because the game was getting delisted simultaneously.
I think it was already delisted, something like that. You can't get it anymore on digital platforms, so.
I think you're right, actually. I don't think there was any delisting happening simultaneously.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good old Activision and their licenses that they don't continue to pay for. So Deadpool Remastered on Xbox One and PS4, $34.91 and $55.20 respectively 1 year before. Goes up to $87 and $116.14, up 149.21 and 110.40%. And then 11 months later, $48.74 and $75.05, still up 39.62% and 35.96%. Of course, the PlayStation copy is worth more just because it's PlayStation.
Significantly more.
Still a big jump. Yeah, if it's on Xbox One, it is not valuable, unfortunately. That is just how it goes. Next up, X-Men Origins Wolverine on the 360 and PS3. 1 year before, $45.49 on Xbox 360 and $30 on PlayStation 3. Then up $120 on 360 and $91.25 on PS3, 163% and 204%. And then 11 months later, $80 for 360 and $49.99 for PlayStation 3. So still up 75.86% and 66.63%. Goddamn.
I wonder why. And yeah, you can see the. Oh no, I didn't put the graphs on here. We already mentioned that. I wonder why the 360 one is so much more valuable. That's very strange.
I'm going to bet, also delisted, and I bet it has a easy achievement list.
Interesting.
Because people love their 360 achievement hunting.
This game. So I think we can agree. All 6 of these absolutely related to the movie. Correlated there. But the X-Men Origins Wolverine, really freaking fun. Really good game.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Deadpool game was just okay.
That's what I heard. I don't own that one, but it's a good thing I waited. Because it's dropped
Next up,
incredibly.
We got the biggest shock of all, Borderlands. So we got Borderlands on the Xbox 360. The movie we were talking about, Borderlands. The release, August 9th, 2024. The Metastore, 26. Beloved
out of 26,
film.
Right?
Yes, exactly. Perfect score. 1 year before, it was at a crisp 496. Almost a full Lincoln for this game. After that, release peak went up to 526, up 6.05%. 1 year after, $7.62, up 53.63%. Borderlands to the moon. Make sure you invest, get your copies before Borderlands 4, because this thing's about to go crazy, baby.
I mean, 53%. Well, there's nothing to argue with there.
It's quite the jump.
I love that on the graph here, it goes from $0 to $8.
It's awesome.
Yeah, so the rest of the movies that we're going to be talking about, just to mention this real quick, they have all been released within the last year. So this I column here is only going to be, the current value. Yeah.
All right.
Did you see Borderlands?
Take over? Oh, no interest.
Yeah, I didn't see it either.
I saw that that cut of the movie where you could see the cameraman in one of the shots when they were doing an overview shot, and I was like, I don't need to give this my money. I was like, at least try to care.
I said I liked all the movies on this list. I did not see Borderlands.
Now you're obligated to watch it and give us a full spoiler cast on your channel for channel members only.
I didn't see Snow White. I have not seen Borderlands.
You're not seeing Fantastic Four either.
Yeah. Let's talk about Alien Romulus. I loved this movie. I thought it was so good.
It was so good. I loved it.
I'm happy to hear that you agree.
Fantastic.
As far as collectible Alien games goes, I don't know if there are any except for Alien on Atari. Believe me, I think a lot of them are collectible, but like objectively collectible, there are a lot of versions of Alien 3. There's like a lot of reasons to collect that Alien game on PS1 now. Like maybe not a lot of reasons, but there's that glitch or whatever that some YouTuber figured out. There's some way to do something to your PS1, and it's really cool.
I think you can soft mod it in some way with it.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So there's that, which is, not really collectible. It's just desirable for a different reason. But let's talk about Alien. 2600 version is kind of always been, it's not a grail or anything, but it's always been a little bit pricey. A year before the movie comes out, it's $100. Movie comes out, all of a sudden it's $165. I do think, so what is it? It's August of 2024. You look at this graph here. June, July, August. So it's on the downturn. So I feel like it's not at all related. I wrote this note. So it was $180 in May, and it's just gone down ever since. I don't know what happened there.
Very weird.
Seems unrelated. Again, this one sale per month, not a super frequent seller here. Just I think it's all unrelated. Alien 3, I chose the NES version. Again, it's on SNES, it's on Genesis, it's probably on 15 other consoles.
Game Boy.
Yeah. $100 before the movie comes out, jumps up to 141. Let's see, August 2024. I mean, it doesn't look like it jumped. It didn't spike or anything in August, particularly. But it did go up 42% regardless. And then after the movie comes out a year later, it's all the way down to $96.
Man.
I'm not seeing a whole lot of correlation here. Interesting nonetheless.
I think maybe partly because Alien 3, I think, is kind of... I don't know if the NES game is beloved, but I don't know. Yeah, not much of a correlation. I do want to point out, as a reward for those of you that have made it about 55 minutes or so into this, before this YouTube video I saw recently blows up, I'm going to give you all a chance. Alien 3 on the Game Boy. I've watched a video about Game Boy horror games, and this game actually looks pretty sick, so maybe buy that before that video starts to gain traction. It's like a top-down survival horror game for the Game Boy, which is really sick. So
let's pump that market.
Pump the market.
I didn't even know it was on NES until I was making this content. I had no idea. You deserve to talk about the next one for sure.
I do, because I discovered this way back when and shared it with you and blew your mind. So, Wicked. That's certainly a movie, all right. We got 2 Wizard of Oz related movies here. The Beyond the Yellow Brick Road on DS and Wizard of Oz on SNES. Wicked released on November 22nd, 2024. Metacritic score 73, so fairly liked. People really like this movie to a unhealthy degree. But 1 year before, Beyond the Yellow Brick Road was $108.51. The release peak, $109.03, so only up 0.48%. 1 year later, $219.15, up 101.96%. As you mentioned, not even a year after, only been 7 months. But a big part of this one is that it is a Japanese role-playing game. Anime turn-based. They turned Wizard of Oz into the isekai it was always meant to be. And people like it. This is also another one, kind of like Piglets. Big game, where there was tweets talking about this one, talking about the art style and how interesting and weird it was. So I think a combination of Wicked and that gaining traction at the same time made this game blow up in price. It's a very strange game. If you like weird RPGs, I would definitely recommend it. But it's a very tedious and grindy game, so definitely not for everybody.
The reason I highlighted this red is because this spike that you see on this graph here didn't happen until March. No, wait. It started spiking in 2025 January, and by March it was at $290. So this one only, well, it says it's one sale per week. That's kind of crazy. This one has always been like 100 plus. So like that long stretch you see here is at $100. It's always been kind of like it's published by Xseed, so that kind of gives you some context clues right there. But this one really spiked, and I do think this tweet you mentioned, and I think that this movie has something to do with it. I think that even though it is a few months after it came out, I still feel like Wicked had a lot to do with it.
Because I remember even when the movie was out that weekend, I remember texting you. I was like, dude, this game's sold out. Like, there's no copies on eBay that weekend. So it's like people caught on, and I think the price just started to inflate from there.
Yeah.
And then we have the Wizard of Oz on Super Nintendo, some nice cardboard for y'all. Year before, $80.07. Release peak, $88.99, up 11.14%. In 1 year or 7 months later, down to $77.49, down $3.22, or down 3.22%. So cardboard is dead. Make sure to collect your Super Nintendo now while you have the time.
If there's anything to note from this entire episode, it's that playability is really driving up prices more than collectability. Like, the games that people want to play, like freaking Deadpool and X-Men Origins and The Wizard of Oz on DS, are the games that are going up in value. It's kind of insane.
It is. It's a cursed timeline that we're living in.
You didn't like Wicked or what?
It was alright. It was fine.
I had a blast with that movie. I liked it a lot.
I remember like deadpanning to my wife when the title screen flashed and it said Wicked, and then in the corner it says Part 1. I'm like nowhere do they tell you this is a two-parter.
Yeah.
And then I was like, also this is 3 hours and it has 2 parts. I'm like, there's no fucking way. Like, it doesn't need all that.
It was definitely a surprise when I saw the part 1.
It was definitely really long too. It felt like 3 hours. I liked it, but it felt like it was 3 hours.
I think you deserve Sonic 3 when you're done with that gulp.
Man,
I mean, I can do it.
20 games to talk about. No, it's fine.
Hang on. You don't have to do every little decimal. We can you can be quick about it.
All right. So Sonic 3, very, very beloved by fans, critics, 55. Released December 2024, so only 6 months, not even a year. But this definitely affected the price of many Sonic games, actually. And I remember you and I and others talking about it even at the time. So first up, we got Sonic Adventure on the Dreamcast. 1 year before, 53.63. Release peak, 69.99. 1 year after, 57.52. So it did go up, but it's kind of started to adjust back to where it once was. Sonic Adventure DX on the GameCube, $37.78. Release peak, 66.46. 1 year or 6 months after, 59.01. So it's gone down, but not by a lot, actually. And it's surprising that it's more expensive than the Dreamcast version, because any true Sonic Adventure fan knows that the Dreamcast version is the superior version. Shadow the Hedgehog definitely took a big hit on this one. On the PlayStation 2, 1 year before, $20.62. Release peak, $70.49. 1 year later, $47.89. So still up 132%. On the GameCube, started at $47.61 a year before. Release peak, $122.02, up 156%. 6 months later, $84. So still almost doubled in price since then. It has not gone back down. On Xbox, $37.68. Surprising that was more than the PS2 version. Anyway, release peak $87.13. And 1 year, or 6 months after, sorry, I keep doing that, $66.25. So all of these Shadow games have gone up pretty significantly from where they once started, because of Sonic 3.
Yeah.
And it's funny because seeing some revisionist history out there, people used to poo-poo on Shadow the Hedgehog all the time, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, it's actually pretty fun. Where were you all these years when everyone made fun of me for liking that game? I don't trust any of you guys. You're all fakers. Next up, sorry, I got a little personal there. Next up, we have Sonic Adventure 2 on the Dreamcast. 1 year before, $116.60. Release peak, $229.60. Doubled in price, essentially. And 6 months after, down $167.80, but still up 43.91%. Sonic Adventure 2 Battle on the GameCube, though, started at $46.66. Release peak $102.80, and 6 months later, $77.65, so still up 66.42%. Yeah, people really love Shadow the Hedgehog to a unhealthy degree.
Yeah, Craig gave me one fun fact, probably like early in this show, is that Sonic Adventure 2 came out after the Dreamcast was dead.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why this one
already discontinued.
This one was $116 before the movie was even out. Like, this game is expensive. It's always going to be expensive. I think these are crazy examples of people really wanting to play, Shadow's origin.
Mm-hmm. But Origins. It is interesting to me because Sonic Adventure 2 on the Dreamcast is not considered the superior version like Sonic Adventure on the Dreamcast is compared to the GameCube counterpart. So I am surprised that the GameCube version isn't worth more just in terms of people wanting to actually play it, but who knows?
That is an interesting one. I remember talking about that as well. I guess it's got to be boiled down to supply and demand. But there should be more demand for the GameCube version. Good stuff. We've definitely talked about that one a lot. Let's fire through these last few here as we enter the 1 hour mark. Thanks for watching, guys.
Good lord. And we said this show wasn't a podcast.
Here we go. Captain America and the Avengers once again. This time we're looking at a different era of this game's graph. So we talked about this one with Avengers Endgame earlier. A long time ago, an hour ago, you guys might remember. So this movie comes out. It came out in February this year. It got a solid 42 on Metacritic. Once again, I liked it.
I haven't seen it yet.
What'd you say? Oh,
I just said I haven't seen it yet.
I'm not seeing a single drop of correlation for the NES one. It goes from 170 to 167, back to 170.
170.
Unrelated. But this was shocking to me. Captain America Super Soldier on the 360 and PS3. We're just talking about the PS3 one here. But it was $32. It went all the way up to $58.
Mm-hmm.
Right at the time that the movie came out. I don't think that's a coincidence.
No, this falls into that factor of playability, not collectability. People would rather play the PS3 360 version over the NES Captain America game for sure.
Yep, and you can definitely get Captain America and the Avengers for cheaper than $170 on Super Nintendo or Genesis. Yeah, it's all playability. That must be a good game. Must be a fun one.
Even.
Another movie that did piss poor. Snow White. Go ahead, you can take it.
I was gonna say, yeah, Snow White. Yeah, no one liked this shit. I didn't hear anything good about it, unfortunately. It also just looked weird, and I thought it was strange that the movie was, long. And I'm like, the original anime version is like 45 minutes long.
How long is the movie?
How much? I think it's almost 2 hours. Let me fact check this real quick. We've made it far enough. I could do this. It's fine. Snow White 2025 has a runtime of 1 hour and 45 minutes. So they added like 1 hour and 5 minutes of fluff compared to the animated original. Wild. So, Snow White, as far as I know, not a lot of games for this console. I see you chose Game Boy Color and Super Nintendo. I'm going to assume those are the only Snow White games, probably.
I think there's one on 2600, but it's just like, let's be real here.
It's fine. Yeah, don't worry about it. So, the movie released less than 3 months ago on 3/21/2025. On Game Boy Color, Snow White and the Seven Dwarves, $75 1 year before. The peak, down 16.03%, $62.98. And 3 months later, down to $52.63. People hated that movie so much that the game lost almost 30% of its value. They're like, I don't even want to look at Snow White ever again. Then we got Snow White and Happily Ever After on the Super Nintendo. That was 1 year before, $101.18. The release peak went up 32.97% to $134.54. And 1 year after, 3 months later, $124.97. Only 4 sales per year, though. So this one's price might just be based off of availability.
I'm also looking at the Game Boy Color one, and it says 50, or it says 1 sale per year for that one. So again, not great data for these. I'm seeing it's published by Ubisoft on GVC, and it's usually a good sign that there's going to be a low print run. Combine that with the 1 sale per year, I am suddenly intrigued by Snow White and the Seven Dwarves on Game Boy Color.
Makes a save search.
Yeah. These are cool. I mean, I'm not I want to be more into Disney than I am, and I think that these are cool. I would like to have these.
Yeah, definitely. Something interesting, right?
Yeah. All of that being said, absolutely no correlation.
Nah. Last one, why don't you take the wheel, buddy?
I wanted to throw this in because I did notice recently that the Fantastic Four game on PS1 is just through the freaking roof. And this movie isn't out yet, but this is the only thing I can think of because it's a random Acclaim published title that looks god awful. It looks so bad. So it's not like players are looking to get this one. If you have any insight, please drop a comment. I don't know what's going on, unless it's the movie. But we just spent 1 hour and 10 minutes talking about how people aren't collectors. They're just players looking to play games. I feel like this could be the exception because this is the only Fantastic Four game that's not based on a movie. This is like a literal comic book tie-in from the 90s on a collectible console. I bought this for the full purpose of collecting. I thought this was a cool one. I like the box art.
Yeah,
Um,
box art goes hard.
I think it's a really cool release, even though it's probably an awful game. But a year before the movie came out, so July of 2024, it was $30. Right now, it's going to cost you $65. Tell me what's going on.
Yeah, I think Movie Hut combined with it has the crossover of being appealing to comic book fans and video game fans. So it's one of those ones where there's probably more than one market of collectors looking at it right now. So
I think it's cool that it's the first Fantastic Four game. I think there might be some PC exceptions. There's a really old Doctor Doom game. But
I don't think PC games count. It's fine.
Yeah.
I made one person really mad saying that. That's why I had to say.
It would be really interesting to see, come July or come like August, really, what the heck the price is looking like on this game. Because the movie's probably going to be great. It's a cast full of people that everybody loves. And Fantastic Four is like the comics died for a few years there, where like they just straight up were not producing Marvel Comics Fantastic Four for years. But they've recently, in the last like 5 years, rebooted it, and it's one of those old like 60s, I believe, origins. Like it people love Fantastic Four. It doesn't get the MCU. It hasn't in the recent years gotten the MCU credit that it should have, and or the presence, I guess would be the right word.
But wasn't that because Fox or somebody else owned the rights to
Probably.
it? Mm-hmm.
So I mean, this could be the start of Fantastic Four on PS1 being a very expensive game. Who knows?
Yeah, and I think the early 2000s Fantastic Four movie, is old enough now for people to be really nostalgic for it too. So
for sure.
Shout out to my boy Michael Chiklis.
I don't even know which one that is.
He's the Thing.
Oh, okay. That's it. Thank you guys for sitting through this. I really was thinking like 30 minutes, 40 minutes.
We're yappers, all right. Professional yappers.
I had a lot of fun researching all this, and
yes, this was all Christian. So make sure you guys give him some love and some flowers in the comments down below.
Well,
he did a lot of work on this one.
Craig deserves love and flowers for listening to me talk about this crap.
Nah, anytime.
If there are movies that you think we missed, which one I thought about including was Top Gun. I bet because funny. That was definitely I think it was the 10th best selling or like highest grossing film of the 2020s.
Oh yeah, that movie went crazy, Maverick.
Yeah, I haven't seen it, but
so much money.
I can't even fathom that the NES game had any bump in value.
I hope not. Don't let me down, guys.
Yeah, if you think there's like some movies that we missed, or maybe we need to go check out. It's hard to go to like the 2000s or the 2010s because price charting just wasn't a real thing back then. This is really
so you can only go so far back.
This is the best era to do it in. But that just means we can do it again in a couple of years when we have more movies to compare to.
Exactly.
All right, I'll stop talking. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you later in this month for another episode.
Take care, y'all.